Welcome to this episode of the Erasing Shame podcast. I'm DJ Chuang, and I'm joined with Dr. Jean Neely, who is the author of a brand new book titled Christ in the Abyss: Cultivating Deep Faith Amid Depression and Despair. Thank you, Jean, for joining me for this book conversation.
Thank you so much for your invitation, DJ. It's
And
really
I'm
great to be here.
delighted to be recording this conversation and sharing it with you on the date of this book being released, June 9th,
Yes.
2026.
Yes.
And you can buy it on Amazon for convenient home delivery and free shipping if you're on Amazon Prime. And then also at the NAV Press page where you can download a free chapter, the first chapter for free. And to start our conversation, our book talk, our conversations here at Reaction Shame, the first question we often ask is, what comes to mind when you hear the word shame?
So much. So much,
Yes,
DJ.
and I did see you use that book several times. I did see that you used the word shame in your book.
Yes.
As I'm going through, I'm about 2/3 of the way through,
Mm-hmm.
and hopefully by release date, I'll have finished the entire book.
Yeah. It became a big issue for me, shame, and a major thing when I actually first received my diagnosis for bipolar disorder at 15. So I think up to that point, I had just felt like a normal kid. I was busy with school stuff. I was in the honors classes and things like that. So I sort of considered myself maybe one of the smart kids and, tried to do well in school and things like that. Once I got my diagnosis, I was the only person I knew personally who had a mental illness. And just that the notion of mental illness was loaded with so much shame for me. It's something that at the time, like in the mid 90s, nobody was talking about it in the church. This was before anyone was advertising antidepressants or, people were talking about therapy and anxiety openly. Just huge stigma. And it just came with a feeling of there's something wrong with me. I'm not normal. I can't live a normal life. And then all the faith struggles that it brought on with depression and anxiety, that especially when they're severe, also just made me feel like I'm a bad Christian. God must be so disappointed with me because no other Christian I knew struggled with those kinds of things. So it was just a very long journey of shedding a lot of that shame. And I think, that's part of what's behind the book as well, because it took so long. It took so long for me to shed some of that. Even though my family has always been loving and supportive, I've always had loving friends, Christian friends who were very understanding and compassionate. But something in the culture, I think, and maybe something in my temperament, made me feel very ashamed of my diagnosis and my struggles.
Yeah, I can relate to many parts of your story that you've shared very openly and in detail in the book. We won't have time to cover the entire thing. That's why you have a book. But I'm glad to have met you in person a handful of times. And one of the things that connected us is we share the same mental health diagnosis, bipolar type 2.
Oh, I actually have type 1. But
Okay,
similar.
Type 1 and type 2, a lot of similarities.
Yes.
I actually don't know what the difference is. I haven't found a consensus on how to two, although DSM-5 has a definite a textbook difference, but none of us are textbook people.
No. And, and the definitions are, I'd say there's a lot of guesswork in the diagnoses and things like that as well. And there's a spectrum, I think, of symptoms and severity. So they're very similar.
Yeah. And when I was diagnosed, I was age 35.
Okay.
And so though looking back, I probably had symptoms of depression, mania throughout my teenage and high school and college years. But because of shame, I never got it diagnosed until I was in crisis.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. So what was that like for you? I mean, being Asian American, for
Mm-hmm.
you Korean, for me Chinese,
Mm-hmm.
we grow up in a culture of shame, and
Yeah.
then to have mental health on top of that kind
Right.
of uh, exponentially increases that shame.
Yeah.
So describe a bit of how your family was supportive and helpful as
Mhm.
before your diagnosis, and then that you were able to get help sooner than later.
Yeah. I've just appreciated this more and more as I've gotten older, as I've met more people who just have very different experiences in their
Hmm.
families. I didn't realize at the time just how exceptional my parents were. So my
Hmm.
dad was a pastor. He passed away last year, but
Hmm.
um, and I mean, we had a little bit of a fraught relationship. He was very busy with church, um,
Hmm.
to his credit, he was always so open-minded. And even as a pastor, when I've heard what I've heard from other people, that he was so open-minded and so much like a mentor in a lot of
Hmm.
supportive ways. My mom is a retired nurse, and
Hmm.
so she has familiarity with the medical world, and was comfortable with all
Hmm.
that. They were both very educated. They even before the diagnosis, they were very unusual as Korean immigrant parents in never pressuring me or my sister in academics or anything.
Hmm.
We got to do what we felt like doing in terms of, like, we took piano, I took piano, she took violin because we wanted to, and we got to do dance and other things. They didn't pressure us to study extra hard. They never pressured us to major in any specific thing. Um,
Hmm.
so they were already pretty unusual in that way. I don't know any other Korean parents who were like that, like personally.
Uh-huh.
um, so they were always just very supportive. And then when I started having symptoms, it was the mania that was very noticeable. I was probably depressed before I started having manic episodes, but I
Hmm.
didn't know. I just thought I was really tired from school.
Hmm.
And the mania was very noticeable to them. I personally actually thought, and you read about this in chapter 1, I thought I was just on a spiritual high. I was excited
Hmm.
about Jesus, and they just noticed a lot of unusual things. And so they were the ones who actually insisted that I go see a psychologist friend of theirs. I think it really helped that he was the husband of a good friend of my mom's in the Korean community, and also happened to be Christian. And then that
Hmm.
psychologist was able to refer us to a psychiatrist who also happened to be in the Korean Christian community in Orange County.
Hmm.
So I think their connectedness in that community probably helped a lot. And just that they were always, yeah, very open minded and really compassionate. They never blamed me for,
Hmm.
not like being vulnerable that way, for being too
Hmm.
emotional. Yeah, they were always just very understanding about it.
Well, you're very blessed.
Yes, I I
And
realize that.
for some reason, and I can't explain all of it, but
Mhm,
the Christian church and the Asian American, Korean
mhm,
American church has a
mhm,
reputation for it being uncomfortable and silent,
mhm,
and even
mhm, mhm.
shaming about
Yes.
mental health struggles.
Mhm, mhm.
And yet, Christians and non-Christians alike, we're just as human.
Yes.
So statistics say that 20 to 25% of people struggle with mental health
Mhm, mhm.
challenges.
Right.
And so Christians as well as non-Christians struggle,
Yep, yep.
and we're all just trying to get through life. And we have listeners and viewers here at Erasing Shame that are not Christian
Mhm,
in their spirituality. And for
mhm,
you, faith and spirituality has been a very important and helpful uh, ingredient, or
mhm.
I don't know what the better word is, but it's been very helpful to you in your healing and
Yes.
growing process.
Right.
So, what would you say to the non-Christians who are listening in and they're
Mm.
not sure about their faith, or
Mhm.
they just have a different faith?
Yeah. I'd say, whether you ascribe to a certain faith or not, or a Christian or not, I think we're all spiritual beings.
Mm.
And I think we all have soul longings. And, and then there might be people from other faiths who do believe in, a divine being. And I think there is something that is so reassuring to our souls to know that there's goodness and mercy from God,
mm,
from whoever we believe God to be. So there's that. I think that there's a really profoundly healing aspect of knowing that we have mercy from God,
mm,
whatever faith tradition you're coming from. And that was something that was really hard for me to believe for a long time. I thought maybe I was disqualified from mercy because my faith wasn't strong enough,
mm,
because I was always anxious, or always depressed. So that's one thing. And then I think, something I've been learning more in recent years too, is that there are similar sort of contemplative traditions across, faiths, like Sufi tradition in Muslim,
mm, mm,
among Muslim folks, and like in Buddhism, meditation
mm,
and things
mm,
like that.
mm,
And Christian contemplative spirituality and prayer has been so helpful and grounding for me.
mm.
And even though we come at it slightly differently, I think there are shared values and experiences there too, and wisdom like that we can share across faith.
That's wonderful. And
Mm-hmm.
that's one thing I've noticed about your book as I'm going through
Mm-hmm.
it is how gracious and gentle you are about how you express your faith. And it's expressed in a way that people of different faiths can relate on a human level
Mm-hmm.
because we're all
Mm-hmm.
spiritual beings.
Yeah.
And I think it's safe to say that even though we may have different faiths, we can
Mm-hmm.
relate on that human, intangible heart and soul level,
Yeah.
along with the personal story that you unpack.
Yeah.
So the where your book spends most of its time is both your personal and your spiritual journey.
Mm-hmm.
And I think both of us have experienced that in certain Christian circles, they're uncomfortable and even resistant to medicine or psychology or
Right.
definitely psychiatry and uh, human ways of dealing
Mm-hmm.
with our mental health
Mm-hmm.
challenges, being
Mm-hmm.
bipolar for us.
Yeah.
And so you've had a better than average experience in
Mm-hmm.
some sense in
Mm-hmm.
terms of finding Christian community where they're supported.
Mm-hmm.
And the latest chapter I was reading, you also experienced a lot of grace and mercy from people who are not Christian during your time in
Yes.
France. Can you
Yes.
share a bit about that?
Yeah. That was actually such a healing experience for me because I grew up pretty sheltered in the church,
Mm,
and in a certain kind of sort of conservative faith circle, right?
mm, mm,
And I think part of that, even though it never felt punitive or legalistic, it wasn't that,
mm,
but
mm.
but there was a lot of devotional fervor,
Yeah.
and a sort of kind of constant striving to, we want to do our best for God. We want to be our all,
Mm,
like,
mm,
have undivided hearts for God.
mm, mm,
So I always felt a little guilty for like not trying hard enough, not doing enough, maybe not serving enough, not being as outgoing as some of my other Christian friends. And then I also, partly because I didn't know other Christians who struggled with a similar diagnosis or
mm,
serious depression, I really thought I was supposed to get over bipolar or get over my depression to be a better
mm,
Christian. So when I was in France, the first time, I spent 3 years there after college.
mm,
And my
mhm,
first year there was my first time, like the first time in my life where I wasn't surrounded by people of similar faith.
mhm,
The Christians, even the Christians that I encountered, had slightly different backgrounds and different
mm,
influences
mhm,
than I had. It wasn't like the U.S. evangelical mindset.
mm,
And then the people that I worked with and that I taught and that I met in the city I was in, were mostly nominal Catholics or just not Christian, like secular, not spiritual at all.
mhm,
And yet they were so, so welcoming and so kind. And I happened to be living with two other young women at the time who were also just recent college grads. I was teaching English at the school. They were teaching
mm,
Spanish and German.
mm,
And we became great friends and they were so supportive. But I think what was really surprising to me was I went over there thinking, it was my first year, you read about this, it was my first year of being off of medication ever since my
Mm-hmm.
diagnosis. Because again, I thought I was supposed to outgrow this, right? And I thought to be a normal, healthy adult, I had to be able to do life without all this other psychological help.
Mm-hmm.
And so I ended up having major episodes, and the depression started early on. But that it's a little easier to hide because I can be highly functional. I was just exhausted all the time. Then when the manic episode occurred that winter is when everything sort of became public.
Mm-hmm.
And before then, I had not told anyone at the school about my condition where I was working because I was really, again, it was before anyone was talking about mental health
Mm-hmm.
openly. And so I really thought, well, if the school finds out, or if I was there as a Fulbright teaching assistant, I thought if the Fulbright program finds out, like they're sending me home, there's no way that they're gonna think I'm okay to do this. So I didn't tell anyone except my two flatmates. And what I told them was, I've had these experiences in the past. It probably will not be an issue, but
Mm-hmm.
if you notice anything unusual, maybe encourage me to see someone, because I thought I could handle it. And what happened was, that I tell in that chapter, is I had a very noticeable manic episode, and the school found out. My supervisors, the principal and vice principal, found out, and I couldn't continue teaching for a time because the episode was very pronounced, and I needed assistance. So I was in a foreign country and didn't know about the services or anything like that. The vice principal of the school referred me to a local psychologist. That psychologist referred me to a psychiatrist. My flatmates and my colleagues took me to appointments, took care of
Mm-hmm.
me when I was manic and still not totally well. And once my colleagues found out, I was so afraid that people would think I was just, I don't know, crazy was the thing, right? Or just weird because I had this
Mm-hmm.
diagnosis. But everyone was so warm, just surprisingly warm and caring. And the response was more surprise that I was so ashamed of this,
Mm-hmm.
and surprised that I found it so problematic to take medication. Um,
Yeah, other
and
people were surprised by your own
yes,
reaction.
yes, I was surprised by their surprise too. Like
Mm,
I was surprised that they were so compassionate. And I don't know that this would have been the case anywhere in France or with any community. This was the case with that community that year where I was,
mhm,
and I was very grateful. And it's interesting. So they helped me through that whole thing. But for years, I didn't really consider it as care from God because I thought God primarily worked through
mm,
Christians.
mm,
And these were mostly non-Christian friends. It wasn't until years later when I was looking back at my journals and just thought, wow, I was just surrounded by grace that year, just so much grace. And yeah, it can come from non-Christians. They were actually helpful in ways that the church was not necessarily helpful at the time for me because there wasn't this like scrupulous self-inspection all the time,
mhm.
there was this, you're allowed to be human. I don't know why you're not okay with your being human. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow. I'm glad you were able to experience grace from all kinds of people,
Yes.
and God. We believe God works
Mm-hmm.
in all kinds of ways through
Yep.
all kinds of people, not only through religious boxes.
Right.
And as we receive all that in spiritual and faithful ways and human ways,
Mm-hmm.
we actually become more human
Yes.
and we become healthy, and then our faith becomes richer.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the reality is this, though,
Mm-hmm.
that for it seems like a good number of Christians lose their faith when they go through suffering.
Mm-hmm.
And then suffering could be short term, or they call it
Mm-hmm.
acute because of
Mm-hmm.
grief or loss or
Mm-hmm.
um, trauma that are short
Mm-hmm.
term. But when it comes to mental health, it feels like for many of us, it's a lifelong journey.
Yes.
And that can be rather frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that is frustrating.
Yeah.
And then for us as bipolar, probably the greatest temptation is to get off our meds.
Yes.
And then secondly, we don't allow enough people in to
Mm.
notice when we're misbehaving or something's off.
Yes.
And
Right.
I'm so glad that you have come to the place where you're staying on your meds
Mm-hmm.
and you invited people to speak into your life.
Yes.
Those are two very big decisions that you made. And
It's
I know you
true.
didn't come to it right away.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you're there.
Thanks.
So, what would you say to um, people that lose their faith because of
Mm.
life, the reality of life and suffering,
Mm-hmm.
particularly
Mm-hmm.
mental health?
Yeah. It's so, so tough. And
Mhm,
I just think my first thing is I completely understand how that could happen
mhm,
because there are times when I feel like I cannot have faith. When you're in really severe depression, I feel like all of your senses are clouded,
mhm,
and your perspective is skewed. You just cannot conceive of, you maybe, like, sometimes it's so bad for me that I can't conceive of God being real. Even, like, is there something real beyond just this physical space and my feeling
mhm,
really crappy, you know?
mhm,
So there's that. And then even when it's not that severe, it's so hard to believe that God is good, because you think, how could a good God let people go through this kind of thing?
mhm,
And I think too about not just mental illness, but just so much suffering that's long lasting, for people, that's
mhm,
devastating. And I think, as Christians, sometimes we just expect people to have some sort of superhuman capacity to, you know what I mean, to just
mhm,
have such strong faith. And I think I've come to believe that God is a little more understanding about our humanity than,
a lot more.
yeah, right? Yeah. Then, especially, even much more than I tended to think or believe.
Mm,
And so I think some of what can help is even, I think, again, what was concretely helpful for me is connecting with community, even when I felt horrible, even when I felt like I lost my faith or was losing my faith. Um, there were many times through the years when I felt really doubtful of my own prayers. Like, is God even listening
mhm,
to me? Is my faith strong enough? So I would ask other people to pray for me because I had more faith in their prayers.
mm,
But I feel like there's nothing wrong with that. And
mhm,
then I also have come to feel like, there will be times when it feels like our faith is falling apart. And I think if we shift our perspective a little bit and consider that not as an end to faith, but maybe, okay, this is part of the faith journey, that sometimes you feel like you lose your faith, and sometimes you feel like your faith is completely gone. And I think if we can sort of imagine that God's mercy still continues through that. I know that takes a measure of faith too, but
mhm,
um,
mhm,
but I think we can trust that, like, very little depends on the strength of my faith, um, and that can be a comfort, I think, and something to hold on to. But again, I also think if you feel like it's falling apart, just let yourself go through that,
mm,
and accept that this is part of being human too. It's like, as Christians,
mm,
we don't have such, like, special access to truth or like super faith all the time. We're just as human as everyone else. We get things wrong. We have ailments, like everyone else. And I really think that there's mercy through all that.
mm. Thank you for sharing that, and I hope the way you're opening your life of being human,
Mm-hmm.
living with bipolar, and holding on to your faith will be a inspiration and help to others as they wrestle with their questions and doubts.
I hope so.
How it doesn't quite, well, it doesn't seem to be presented that way from the pulpit
You're
in
right.
most places. Yeah,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
human story really helps to kind of
Yeah.
flesh out and give us a better picture of what faith can look like.
Yeah.
And speaking of churches, then, what can
Mhm.
churches do better to create places of psychological safety, to be
Mm.
more um, gentle and kind,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
even welcoming of those that may struggle with mental health?
Yeah. I mean, I think we're getting better. Like we've gotten better over time, I think, and there's definitely more awareness among
Mhm,
pastors, I think, and Christian leaders that mental health is a real thing. That it's not just a spiritual, a problem or things like that. But I think we could talk more about just the struggly, difficult parts of life, and that faith is not always a sunny journey. A
mhm,
lot of us, do have struggles that last very, very long seasons or lifetimes,
mhm,
and that's not a sign that something is wrong. That's just part of being human. Um, so I think maybe addressing a little more of like the whole spectrum of human experience from the pulpit could
mhm,
help.
mhm, mhm. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's good.
and I think maybe even encouraging people to, for some of us, I think a lot of us, maybe even from my generation more than this one, have internalized a sort of harsh image of God, even though we learned about grace. So I think maybe addressing some, like healing that inner image of God, and also talking about integrating like our whole lives. We're not just
Mm,
purely spiritual beings,
mhm,
a lot of our faith and everything is shaped by our experiences, our wounds,
mhm,
and those are things that we all need to address as we grow in
mhm.
faith. So maybe being more holistic.
Yeah, those are good words.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, or just the way we have limited time in
Mm-hmm.
a church event or program, we
Mm-hmm.
many churches only focus on the theological or dogmatic,
Mm-hmm.
and that's only a slice of the pie of
Mm-hmm.
what it means to be
Mm-hmm.
human. And so when we
Yeah.
can get the experiential side of our faith,
Mm-hmm.
that really helps it to come alive. That really helps us to understand who God is. And in fact, Jesus came as a human to help
Yeah.
us understand, experience what uh, God is like
Yes.
and how he does pour out grace and mercy. And I think
Yeah.
that resonates with the title that you came to, Christ in the Abyss.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any more you would like to say about the title? It's a really unique
Um, oh yeah. Actually, that came to me after I was maybe a couple chapters into writing and trying to find an arc for the book.
one. Hmm.
And then it occurred to me, what I often would tell my friends was that when I was really, really depressed, is that I felt like I was just sitting alone on the bottom of the ocean floor, just
Mm,
cut off from the rest of the world, and just in this very, very shadowy, high pressure place. And I thought, what I've discovered over time is that I'm really not alone there. That Christ is there, even though what I believed for so long was that I was not supposed to be there. That I'm supposed to
mhm,
be like in the sunny meadows with everyone else.
mhm,
Um, and a lot of, I think my journey has been growing to accept, like, oh, it's okay to be there in the abyss, and Christ is here in the
mm.
abyss. Um, so yeah, that's partly where that came from.
That's so good. And that's one of the painful parts for me when I go through those seasons of darkness and
Mm-hmm.
depression
Mm-hmm.
and despair is I feel like I'm totally alone
Mm-hmm.
and no one can understand me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's a really painful place to be.
Yes.
It's so good that we have a faith in Christ who's with us, and then
Mm-hmm.
we can have faith and support with real people who
Mm-hmm.
will not judge us and shame us and
Right.
uh, cut us off when we
Mm-hmm.
are going through those hard times.
Yeah.
So personally, how have you been doing this past year as you've finished this book and the book is releasing? How are you managing your own mental health?
Yeah, it is busy. So I teach part time. I teach writing and literature, so that has been a joy, and it actually keeps me grounded. So I
Mm,
think structure in my schedule really helps, and
mhm,
it's something I love to do. I love interacting with college students. I love teaching. So just giving a good, like a regular portion of my day to that is a good
mm,
stabilizing thing.
Hmm.
I still, take my meds every day. I see a good therapist. That's always helpful. And I also see a spiritual director once a month. And I've been seeing
Mm.
her for 14 years now. And she has just been so significant in helping me to heal from a lot of that shame related to like my view of God. So that's an ongoing thing that's helpful. And let's see, I try to exercise regularly, all the regular things. I'm sometimes not good at getting regular sleep because I stay up late sometimes watching Korean
Hmm.
dramas. But yeah, I think probably a key thing is that I do stay really connected with community. So I have several friends who I text almost daily,
Mm.
and that's partly necessary because I freak out almost daily about little things.
Mm.
And it's just so helpful for me to have calm, loving people, speak back to my like nerves and fears, and a lot of my self critique as well, which is just a major thing. I think it'll be a lifelong thing for me. But one of the things that my friends tell me regularly is be nice to Jean, because I'm often, yeah, so self critical. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so those are some of the things.
Wonderful. It sounds like a great uh, blend and mix of many tools and resources
Hmm.
that you're leaning into instead of
Hmm.
withdrawing from.
Yeah.
And I can relate to, very much relate to the self-condemning voice
Hmm.
that somehow seeped into my DNA
Hmm.
and life experience.
Hmm.
And it's still an ongoing challenge
Hmm.
for me to keep that at bay with healthy practices,
Hmm.
physically, spiritually, and relationally.
Yeah.
So on the physical side, that
Hmm.
I just started doing this past October is playing
Hmm.
pickleball.
Oh, cool. I've heard such great things. I'm really
Yes.
tempted. I just haven't been out there yet, but yeah, I'm going to try it sometime.
Well, maybe we can create an opportunity for that when I come your way, or vice
Yeah,
versa.
that would be
It's
fun.
really easy to learn. It's fun.
Okay.
It's physical,
Yeah.
and it just adds more health in my life and others as well.
Oh, I should do that.
Well, how are you feeling now? Your book is released
Hmm.
June 9th,
Yes.
2026, and what do you have planned, and what else can we look forward to?
So I'm nervous, which is normal for me, because as I was telling you, I love to write, and public speaking is a little bit scarier for me. So as I do these, podcast interviews, as I do book talks and things like that, I'll be, yeah, stepping a little bit out of my comfort zone. Yes. Um, but it's also really, really exciting because I finished writing it actually 2 years ago. And so I feel like, oh, finally it's here. And I finally get to talk with people about it. So I'm just really mostly looking forward to like conversations like this, the one-on-one conversations, and yeah, being able to talk with more people about just real life things.
Well, thank you for opening your life and opening this new chapter through your book and also through your Substack.
Hmm.
And I'm grateful that you're opening this conversation to others as well as
Hmm.
people subscribe to your Substack.
Yes.
What is the URL there?
It's mercyinthedeep.substack.com.
All right, Mercy in the Deep
Mhm.
on Substack. We'll add a link in the show notes to the book, to the free download, and you can one click to subscribe. Thank you, Jean, for joining me on this Erasing Shame conversation. Check out the book. ErasingShame.com will have a link. Her name is Jean Neely, and the title is Christ in the Abyss, Cultivating Deep Faith Amid Depression and Despair. Godspeed on your future as this book helps lots and lots of people.
Thank you so much, DJ.